All right. I think we have a quorum. I'm going to take an attendance if I could. We'll get this meeting started. I guess we'll call it to order officially. Michael,
Here, present.
Mary,
Yes,
Sarah,
Here.
Meg,
Here.
Maribel,
Here.
Helene,
Here.
and Jay. I'm here. We're absent a couple members. Like I had said earlier, Chris Gothier had messaged me this morning. He had a work conflict, so he's unable to make it. And I think we're missing Lauren as well, so perhaps she'll be able to join us at some point as well. Um, so getting started, did everybody have an opportunity to review the minutes that we sent out in the what I will call the agenda packet? Were
Yes.
there any alterations that anyone would like to see made, or would we like to perhaps make a motion to accept those minutes as written? Mary?
there was two errors. First of all, is her name Lauren or Laura?
Lauren, I believe.
Okay, well, that I've been making a mistake on the minutes since she began. So that needs to be fixed at least the last time. So that would be an adjustment.
Okay.
Also, there's another spot where I referred to Chris instead of by his last name. In other words, generally I, call people by their last name when they're, being mentioned. And so I'll change that too. So those are two changes.
Wonderful. Well, we appreciate it. They're always very thorough, and we appreciate that. So, would anyone like to make a motion to accept the meeting minutes from the November meeting?
So move with the exceptions that Mary indicated.
Thank you. Is there a second? Oh, we've got.
Second.
Second.
All righty. I'll call vote. We've got Lauren is with us. So, Michael,
Yes.
Mary,
Yes.
Sarah,
Yes.
Meg,
Yes.
Maribel,
Yes.
Helene,
Yep.
and Lauren.
Yes.
Welcome, Lauren. We have just got going. All right. Agenda item number 2 was I wanted to allow a little bit of time just to welcome our new CPA admin, Naomi, to the meeting. I'm sure everybody's noticed her presence here today. Um, yeah, we're really excited. We're really excited to have you, and welcome to our incredibly friendly and productive committee.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I'll try to match your friendliness and productivity.
yes.
Be good.
Yeah, so just to update folks, we've been kind of getting going. There's a lot to, I've been using the word download. There's a lot to download about the CPA, and I think Naomi's been diving in, and we're going through the layers. Meg's been involved in the process as well, and I think I feel really good about where we're headed. I think we're set up good with trainings and with just to really put Naomi in a strong position to do what she needs to do and make sure she has everything she needs to do well. So we're going to set up some trainings with the city auditor and with the procurement. And we did some online trainings today for our signing application that we use. We're kind of going through the process, and part of that is we'd like if folks were available to either have a little bit of a conversation with Naomi, um, a meeting, a Zoom meeting, an email exchange where, you can just kind of exchange information and your perspective on the CPA and perhaps things you'd like to see done or changes you'd like to see made or just get to know her. So I just would like to welcome everybody to sort of participate in that. And I'll reach out at a later date to sort of kind of facilitate that a little bit easier for everybody. But I'd like that, no pressure. But if folks would like to do that, I think that would be a great value. Like I said, there's just a lot to the CPA. It's very complicated at times, and our I think our committees really has a lot to offer and brings a lot of different perspectives from all of our different committees and such. So I'd like to try to, in for the benefit of our committee and for Naomi to just sort of help her with that information. So, Naomi, did you have anything you wanted to discuss or any comments or?
Well, I will just piggyback on what you just said. I'd be happy to meet with anybody who wants to share their thoughts or get to know me. Um, Jason's been great about giving an overview. Um, and I'm really happy to be here. I'm semi-retired, and this is a perfect job for me here. I still occasionally will write a grant for Mass Hire Holyoke, where I was the development director since '95. Um, so I'm old. And yeah, I'm really pleased to be here and look forward to doing the work. And I'm a big supporter of the CPA. I think it's a really important program. If
So,
anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them or.
yeah.
Mr. Chairman, Naomi, can you put your, how we contacted you via email on the CPA website,
Sure.
just for the members only? But you may not want to have that public, but just for, for our, well, CPA members only. If we have a question or something that we can't get a hold of Jay, or just a nuisance, not a nuisance question, but just just an informative update, if you will. If we have a question on a particular project, that would be helpful for us.
I won't know the answer.
Well, no, well, that's
Not yet
good. Neither
anyway.
do we. But if you could put your email address on the CPA website, just
Yeah.
for the committee to log into, that we would know, if with the chair's permission.
Yep. Yeah, I think we'd like all the members to be able to reach out to Naomi when they need to. So we'll make a point to make sure that information is available. I'll probably send it out too for everybody as well. But yep, absolutely. That's a good point. I'm going to make a note about that, Michael. Thank you. Make sure that's up there. But yeah, so just in general, we're excited. I'm excited, and we're forging ahead. I think if anybody has any questions or comments or concerns, please feel free to reach out, and we're gonna just keep doing what we do. Um, so the next item we have is the CP2 forms update. So I was pleased to be able to send those all to you this week. Tanya is our city auditor, and it was a lot of work. It's confusing, the CP2 forms, because it's not exactly lining up with the fiscal year expenditures. It's really what is spent from various projects from different fiscal years. So it can be complex. So it was a lot of work, and she did a nice job for us. And um, those are done by her. Our financial consultant, Daniel, is also reviewing them to make sure that it matches up with what our expectations are. I hope that it does match up, but Tanya felt confident about it, and I did send those out to everybody for their review. So please feel free to take a look. One of the things I should have mentioned this in agenda item number 2. One of the things that we're working on, and this will be really more a couple of months, but we're working on providing members with access to this type of financial information, so you can just sort of go to a drive and get access to the different aspects of our committee. The CP2 forms is just one part of just a giant amount of financial information that you could review, and it's all just very technical stuff, but I just want everybody to have access to that. So, if you want to take a look at those forms, and if there's anything else or any questions, please let me know. Did anybody have any comments? Mary, please.
I thought they were great. I really liked seeing them, and I think that it would have been great to have had that available to the public, before the election. But one of the things that I wanted to ask about was, in different years, it looks like interest accrued. Sometimes it was a huge amount, but it was always a pretty good chunk.
Substantial, and I actually took note of that as well, and I'll just completely straightforward say I'm not really familiar with it, but I made a note of it was the investment income from one of the years jumped out at me. It was like $70,000 or something like that. So I said, we're going to be meeting with the auditor and with different people from the city treasurer's office as we support Naomi in her training. So that's on my list to sort of dive into and get a better sense of how that works and how the, that money's coming into our committee and, all of that. So, you know, those are, I think, the benefits also of us all having access to this information is, we all look at it with a different set of eyes and see things that we should be doing. So, but yes, that is something that I noted as a good amount of money for us, and we'll have to kind of get a better sense of how that works from year to year, I think. Yeah. Any other questions or comments related to that? Yeah, we just, again, I've said it probably a couple of dozen times. We appreciate Tanya's work on that. It really it's good to get that behind us and that issue. The Holyoke CPA is all CP2 compliant at this point, so we're happy with that. Um, I'm not sure we really need to take a vote, but the next agenda item 4, um, was just a discussion about the scoring criteria. Meg, would you like to jump in on this one a little bit more? I know this was something that you were interested in discussing. My monthly putting Meg on the spot situation.
Totally fine. Okay, I want to share my screen because I realized that what got sent to you didn't have the comments in it to describe the proposed changes. It just had the highlights. So I just want to show you this document. So there are 3 changes that I think that we should consider. So the first one is around supporting documentation. And right now it says for a 3, due diligence is clear and documentation is adequate, which includes a letter from the Historic Commission for non-city historic projects. And my first proposed change is that we remove non-city. And I guess we should just have a conversation around that. Like, what's the value in not expecting city properties to have to prove that they're historic in order to get historic funding? I think there's something problematic in that. And so I just wanted to talk through with you, like, what are the pros and cons of doing that, and having that conversation with the committee around potentially changing it. But again, it's up to the committee. Like, we approved the scoring criteria, so any changes we make to it, we also have to approve. And under sources of funding, um, I'm wondering if it almost seems like these 2 columns to me should be swapped. So to score a 3 right now for sources of funding, it says that CPA funds enable a project for which other funding sources are not available, which means that CPA is the only funding source, but there are not other ways of funding it, right? Versus a 2 right now, it says CPA funds contribute toward a project for which other sources of funds are available and utilizes funds from at least one other source. It just feels to me like those 2 should be swapped. Because we always said from the beginning that our goal around sources of funding was to push folks to come in with skin in the game or come in with other matching funds. And then the third one is right now under restrictions and contractual processes. We name for a 4, applicant is knowledgeable and willing to follow requirements, i.e. restrictions, guidelines of the Department of the Interior, and contractual processes. We've now run into a couple projects like the Boys and Girls Club and now potentially the YMCA pickleball court, where one of those documents is a required memorandum of understanding. So I'm wondering if we want to make that explicit because we've now run into that more than once, and it seems like something that we would want to make sure somebody was aware that it was required and had awareness of what that requirement meant and had a willingness to accept it in order to score highly. Because of course we have some projects where if they're not willing to do that, there's no purpose in moving forward because we would require it in order to give them the funding. So those are my 2 proposed changes to our current scoring criteria.
Outstanding. Under discussion. Does anybody have any questions or comments on that? Michael.
Hi, Megan, regarding the non-city under supporting documentation.
Yeah.
What brought that to mind? What prompted that?
Well, just because something is coming from the city, I don't know, doesn't mean that it's necessarily significant or historic. I just don't know. Like, are we always going to? It seems odd to me that we don't require, based on our scoring rubric, non-city projects, um, to prove that their project is historically significant, but also that doesn't match past practice. We have been asking them to come to the historic commission and
Yeah,
present and get a
we did
letter.
this year. Yeah, we did this year.
Um, so it just doesn't even seem to line up to what we're actually doing as well when I went back in and read it closer.
So if I'm, so it would read, including a letter from the Historic Commission for historic projects.
Mhm.
You delete non-city out of the equation.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, to Meg's point, essentially every historic project would be subject to historic commission review, which I think is good because, they're involved in the process because in theory, it's their arena of expertise. So in some instances, there may be no benefit, but in some instances, they may say, oh, maybe take a look at A, B, and C or give a perspective that we don't have. So yeah, Mary.
I move to change the item under supporting documentation for good 3 to eliminate non-city.
So
Is there a
move
second?
second.
Okay, and I just want to say, I think it's good that we go through these and vote individually. I just always feel like that's the best way about it. So in this, was there any other discussion on this topic, or we can move to a vote? Everybody good? All right. Mary,
Yes.
Meg,
Yes.
Naomi.
I get a vote?
Oh no,
No.
I'm
No.
so sorry.
I didn't think
I'm going in.
I
I'm
didn't
so
think I
sorry.
did.
So sorry. Michael,
Yes.
Lauren,
Yes.
Maribel,
Yes.
Sarah,
Yes.
Jay, yes. And am I missing anybody? Did I miss anybody? The
You're
share
missing
screen.
me.
Who
I
is
say
that?
yes as well.
Helene.
Oh, Helene. I'm so sorry. Helene. Helene. Let me make a list here. Okay. The shared screen is blocking my Zoom attendance. All right. So that passes to remove the non-city portion. Do we want to discuss the next item, which would be swapping um, number 3 and number 2 under sources of funding? Was there any discussion on that?
Can
Helene?
I, can I just say, I mean, I guess if we are going to make a change, it could be swapped. I also feel like both could be compelling, meaning that it would it would be compelling, obviously, to have if it's a project where there's multiple other funding sources and we're part of it, because then we know we're leveraging more money. But there's also times where it would be like this is just there are not other funding sources and it's a really valid project and really like CPA would be pretty much the only place it could go, and so giving that some benefit. So I mean this is not really well thought out, but I just wonder if the good could be like articulates way in which either CPA is uniquely positioned to be the only funder, whatever, and or um, it demonstrates that they're using the CPA funds to leverage and working with other, like bringing in other funding sources to make it happen, which is like clearly like that's not very articulate, but something like that. Because I guess I think both could be really compelling, and if we're going to change it, I don't know that I would want to say one is better than the other. I think that there's times where if someone comes to us and they clearly could get money 8 million different places, which usually is not the case, then that may be less exciting than uh, if there's a project where really there's no one else who's going to fund that thing in Holyoke. So So I guess just like an ability to make a case about why CPA funding in particular would be beneficial either to leverage more funding or because it's uniquely um, available as a funding source for that project.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, in looking at it too, I'm recognizing now is number three and number one are essentially the same thing as well. So I think if you're looking at it, it's you get 3 points if the CPA is the project which other funding sources are not available, and you get 1 point if it's the only source of funding. So, which is the same thing.
I think if I may, I think the difference and when we originally crafted it is that a one is the sense that we can see that there are matching funds they should be going after and didn't. Um, versus a three is, to Helene's point, they don't exist. They're not available. It's not their fault, right? Um, but I will say the deeper that we've gone into CPA, the less have really seen that be true. There are lots of sources of funding. There's lots of matching grants. Um, so I think yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, it seems like the what we have underneath a two is harder to do than what we have
Okay.
for a three. Like we're scoring a project higher of for less diligence. So that was why I thought it just seemed odd that we had swapped it at some point.
I agree. I would say, Meg, that I do feel that like swapping them is a good step, but I think perhaps we also want to examine this section a little bit more, perhaps the entire criteria in a little more detail and just be a bit more, you know, holistic about the whole thing, I think. But
I
I
mean, a
do,
two is still fair, right? That's why it's
yeah.
not bad.
And
It's just
I,
it's a 2 out of 4 is not a bad score.
and I think your suggestion is a step in the right direction as well, whereas we could potentially make that change today and then also further examine the issue and try to come up with something a little bit more reflective of what we actually do. Because perhaps some of this was written in a time of, where you're thinking about how it might play out, and now that we have the benefit of having seen it play out, we can kind of tweak it a bit to fit what we do a bit better. So,
And I
um,
also want to name that the committee, and this is not in writing here, and maybe we should name that more clearly. We're trying to make it simple and concise, which is part of the importance of editing it, right? Like I don't want it to get long and complicated. But one of the other quote sources of funding is labor. So like that's how Parks and Rec has been able to score as highly as they have generally, because they're able to say, yes, the only source of funding is CPA, but our match is the labor that we're doing in kind. So we're going to be able to do X amount of work towards this project in-house, and that will count as our match or our contribution. So that's something just to name, that labor or work in kind is also considered a contribution.
Do we want to take some action on this? Would anybody put forth a motion?
Yeah, I think we're making this more complicated than it really is. I agree with Megan. We ought to swap them. Um, the current two ought to be three, and the current three ought to be two. It's just why make it so difficult? We're not drafting a treaty. We can handle things as they come up, but it certainly makes more sense, I think, to make, as Megan suggested, making the number two CPA funds contributed, make that the a second one, and the second one a third one. It just makes more sense.
Yep. Is there a second?
So I like to make a motion that we, as Megan pointed out, that we swap them as she indicated.
Yeah.
Do we have a second on that motion?
Second.
Second, Maribel, thank you. All right. I'm going to take a roll call vote on that one. Mary,
Yes.
Maribel,
Yes.
Meg,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
Helene,
Um, I'm not sold, but I'm not a no, so I'm just going to abstain.
okay, abstain. Absolutely. Sarah,
Yes.
Lauren,
Yes.
and Jay, yes. So that was a vote to swap numbers 3 and 2 under the sources of funding, and perhaps we'll be thoughtful about what else we might do, and we can have a further discussion on on that topic. The third proposal was to add memorandum of understanding under the restrictions and contractual processes for item number 4 under discussion.
I guess I just moved to do it. I think it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I think it's you know, the you know, we're just managing expectations. We're letting folks know what we do and what they need to, you know, what can be expected of them. And you know, certain organizations only have limited resources, and we don't want to draw them through this process um if we, you know, if they're not able to meet our criteria. So I think that, you know, to me it's a good addition, and I would support it. Would there be any other discussions? Mary?
Yeah, can somebody explain it to me again? I'm sorry. I don't know where it would go. Is it in scoring criteria?
No, under restrictions and contractual processes, the um,
Oh,
bottom row, and then the far
okay.
left column, number 4. Yeah.
All right. Never mind. Thank you very much.
Yep. Would there be a motion to accept those changes?
So
Kind
move.
of beat it. Yeah.
Is there a second? I would need
Second.
a second. Thank you so much. Um, all right, roll call vote. Mary,
Yes.
Maribel,
Yes.
Meg,
Yep.
Michael,
Yes.
Sarah,
Yes.
Lauren,
Yes.
Helene,
Yes.
and Jay. Yes. All right, so all of those changes passed. Thank you, Meg, for those suggestions. And I think you
Can I
know,
ask
just something
if we
for us
want
to
to
be.
ask this?
Go ahead, Meg. Sorry.
Can I ask a question on if we want to specify this under the sources of funding that in-kind contributions may be considered?
Hmm.
Do we want to specify that?
Under discussion, I would say that I think we do. I think that it's something that especially some of the smaller organizations may be able to help them compete against some of the bigger ones. And I like that idea. Any other thoughts? All right.
How would that be quantified? I think the example was the parks,
Like
correct?
Mayor Field, for example, the playground was entirely done by us. A small amount of it, which we couldn't do, was the sidewalk and the fence, and they Parks and Rec picked that up. But then they also did some work on the field itself to improve it, and that was all done as just labor in kind.
But isn't that some of the city responsibility? You know, the business of maintaining the parks. In fact, I think part of the discussion about funding that particular field was around, you know, what was maintenance and what was new. So, I mean, what was under, you know, CPA funding. I'm not sure I want to make a blanket change that can't be quantified.
Yeah.
I tend, oh, sorry. I was going to say, I tend to kind of agree with Mary on that one, just kind of thinking about, you know, I know I get involved with a lot of grant applications with Hoyoke Gas and Electric. And, you know, we will a lot of times try to kind of show like in kind, you know, labor associated with like cost shares for grants and everything. And a lot of what we're showing is project management related, oversight related. So if you kind of apply that to some of this, you know, it's almost like, for example, a building developer could get credit for their project manager just kind of overseeing stuff that they'd oversee anyway. And so I just there could be, you know, some deviation allowed kind of unintentionally just based on, you know, I think the intent of what we're trying to do with that.
Yep, that's an excellent point, Sarah. I think, yeah, perhaps we, you know, something to consider in the future, but maybe we can
Well,
delve in.
I think it's
Helene?
good because for the reason you said, I mean, there's these small organizations that really are just completely volunteer run. And I think, like anything, it's something um, we wouldn't take anyone's word for it, like,
Mhm.
oh, this is going to be done in kind. It's something we'd ask questions about, but it gives those smaller organizations like something to articulate around how in that particular kind of category about, and it's something, I mean, to be honest, we've kind of given credit in other ways, but not as maybe explicit. Um, but like, for example, all that work that Miracle League did, um, and they had raised a good amount of money for it being totally volunteer driven with all these different programs and stuff. And so, I mean, I think that that amount of volunteer community engaged work really made a difference in us feeling like we could put in a lot of money towards that. There were other pros to it as well, like it's not the only issue, but I don't, but I do. I guess I think that we can distinguish if it seems like they're trying to puff or
Mm.
skew things by raising it, but that it could be useful more thinking about the volunteer, the little tiny organizations and projects.
Yeah, and it does, I might note, it does say may be considered. It doesn't say will be considered. So I
Yes,
think,
it says
that
maybe.
does
It gives
gives us some,
leeway.
yeah, it gives us some leeway. Well, just in terms of, if some, real estate developers trying to, make it seem like their project manager is bringing some value that's very obviously not there. I think we'll be able to point that out. Whereas I'm thinking like somebody like Wayne, who's out with a team of volunteers doing work on Saturday afternoons. Like, there's value to that. I don't know how we would quantify it, but like if he made reference to that in his application, like I would consider that as a positive, as part of his overall source of funding. You know what I mean? So I think Helene's point to the fact that perhaps we could leave it a bit vague and then just decide. You know what I mean? And just interpret as is appropriate.
And I
Might
think we
be
already
a
have
little-
been doing that. We just don't have an applicant facing
Mm,
way of explaining that in
mm.
the scoring criteria.
Well, and I think I also just like it because I think it might some organizations maybe might would feel discouraged in some ways, and this may make them feel more confident in applying, So I kind of like it in that sense as well. But there's a lot of really good points on either side, so it's a little bit tricky. But I think the word may is the thing that gets me over the hump in thinking that it might be a good thing for us because it does give us that wiggle room. And I do think we are a very thoughtful committee. We don't just run through the process. We're looking at every project in great depth. So, um, I don't know if somebody would want to make a motion. Mary, please.
So what are we talking about? Are we just talking about the scoring sheet?
We're
Or
talking
are
about
we
the
talking
scoring sheet.
about making a change in how we make decisions altogether? Are we planning on sending this out as one of the things that we're going to allow in when people are applying for what I don't understand what we're talking about.
This
It
is
was
really just
just a
Meg. You
scoring.
want to?
Yeah, this is just, I think already many of us, when we are scoring, are already scoring with that in mind. It's just putting it on paper, I think, what we're already doing. But this is our scoring criteria. So after we have listened to all the presentations and the public presentations in January, everyone will then use this scoring sheet. We'll send the Google form out. Everyone will pre-score all the projects. And then when we meet in February, we'll take projects in order based on the most highly rated first. And then we'll go down the line until there's no more funding.
Okay, I know that, but what are we talking about in regards to this wording change that has to do with in kind?
Just that we would, the proposal is to add in-kind contributions may be considered so that if you are looking at a project, you may decide, I'm going to, even though it's technically only CPA as the fund, but they are naming significant, services or contributions in kind that we want to consider as an additional source of funding. And so we'll score them as a 3 instead of as a 2. Um, or at a 1.
And so you're going to tell that to the applicants before they start.
Yeah, we would share this out to the applicants.
Yeah. So this would be public.
As soon as it was
public
approved.
information. And then also we would use this as we do our scoring criteria. So they're applying with the knowledge that we use this criteria to score them. And their scores is significant because the score is the order in which we vote up or down on projects. So to finish higher in a scoring is very important.
I
So,
think we should just leave it the way it is.
okay. Is there a motion on the proposal?
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay, so I'm gonna say that we have a proposal to add in-kind contributions may be considered and seconded by Helene. I'll do a roll call vote on that. Mary?
No,
Okay. Maribel?
Yes.
Meg? Meg? Yes.
Sorry, I was unmuted. No, I don't think it's necessary.
You're gonna put no, you're voting no on this one? Okay. Michael?
Yes.
Okay. Sarah?
I think with the may be considered, it does give enough leeway. So I'm going to go with yes.
Okay. Lauren?
Yes.
All right. And Jay? Yes. I'm gonna vote yes on that. So that
I don't think you asked Helene.
yep, Helene is a yes vote, unless I'm
Oh.
mistaken.
I am, but I seconded it, so I don't know if you
Yep.
included that as my vote.
Did I not say Helene? I put a check mark next to your name. Helene.
Okay.
I apologize. Helene.
Yes.
So by a vote 6-2, which is very rare that we don't have unanimous vote, the measure passes. And I'll just note that, we very, we may do well to just review this entire document and in time and be thoughtful about it as we move forward. I think those are some good changes that'll be helpful for the committee, but it's a moving document. We can certainly make some changes as we move along. So good discussion, and thank you, Meg, for bringing that up.
Can I say,
Yep.
just like as a big picture thing, I think I just want, if a application makes a compelling argument about why this funding is important, whether it's because it's part of leveraging a bunch of other funding or because it's so uniquely for them, I just feel like that to me is the thing that I want to give the most weight to, is that the level of argument about it. And so, I'm not quite sure how that would come out, and I'm completely fine with everything decided, but that's sort of like, if we're thinking of the bigger picture, that's what I want, is just for, these applications to really reflect, here's how this money makes a difference. And that might be a change to the application in the future or whatever. But that's like my kind of takeaway from this conversation.
Great. Meg?
Yeah, I think too, like there's been enough change in the committee that prior to scoring, it probably makes sense for us to just walk through it all together holistically. Um, and that particular row came from a number of places in our preservation plan from 2018 that said that the committee really should focus on leveraging funding sources and really should make sure that we are encouraging matching funds and grants. So, and there are other places I think in the scoring criteria which focus like goals alignment. Like, is this really, strongly aligned with our goals and priorities, benefit to the city? Do I really think this project is going to make a really significant impact in the city, enough that we should prioritize it over others? I mean, we very rarely see projects come in front of us that we don't want to fund, right? It is always a matter of looking at really good projects and prioritizing them. So I think that there are places in the rubric to really focus in on goals alignment and what we think their impact or benefit to the city is going to be.
Yep. Yeah, and it's an important discussion. I mean, it's definitely impactful on how we operate. So it's definitely something we want to be thoughtful about. So, like I said, I think it's a great discussion. I appreciate Meg bringing that forward for us.
I think just to be explicit though, I think though that there's that on the rubric, but this is the issue around the actual money, like the money having that difference. Um, that's the piece that I want to highlight as much as possible. Like that the program itself can be completely amazing, but if there's, like a lot of people wanting to, I mean, like the housing, we didn't get housing for a lot of time during ARPA, which I kind of think was great. They could have applied, but there was so much funding coming in other places that they leveraged that, and CPA was able to spend it other ways. So I just like being able to know, like, really, this money makes a difference for this project. And then the project itself, it's how it aligns with people's values and with the, that's definitely something to consider. But just like the money itself, how that is like a home run for the project, is just, that's just the important going forward, not to make any other changes today, obviously.
Yep, absolutely. All right. Agenda item number 5 was a discussion of the historic documents. It was really just an update. Meg, do you want to talk about it? Do you want me to talk about it? It's up to you. We were kind of both involved in it a little bit.
No, yeah, why don't you start and I can chime in if I think of anything that I can be helpful with.
So we gave $8,000 last fiscal year to restore some historic journals from the city clerk's office. They're in the basement, and they had been there was mold and just 100 years of wear, and they're historically significant, and there's a lot of interesting information about our history on them, and many members may be familiar with that project. So long story short, they were supposed to be restored from the basement and then transported to the Holyoke Library History Room, where they'd be stored and where they'd be available to the public for review, for historical review, and just anybody in the city that would want them. So it came to our attention that some of the journals didn't make it to the library. Um, they had been left behind City Hall in an area that actually at times has a leaking roof, so that would defeat the purpose of restoring the journals. But fortunately, they are all in good shape, but they were moved to a secure location. We double checked with the city clerk just to get her full permission to move them to the library, and they will be moved soon. But that was the update there. The why, who knows? And does it matter? I don't know. But we're gonna make sure that it gets taken care of. We're on top of it, and it's just one of those things. So I just wanted to make the committee aware of it. If anyone would like any more detail, I'd be happy to provide it. But that's kind of the general story. The journals didn't all make it, but they're secured, and they will be sent to the library, and perhaps in my car sometime next week, I would think, something like that. So any questions on that one? Did I miss anything, Meg? That's kind of a summary, I suppose.
No, I think that's a good way of putting it. And where did we, like the journals that had been left behind, where did those end up?
Um, they are in our office, our CPA office. So,
Oh. And who is gonna take them from our office? Do we know?
I'm probably me, honestly. I'm just coordinating with Eileen. I have Monday morning off, so that was actually part of my plan, was to try to get him on Monday morning over to the library and just take care of it myself, so that way I know that it's been taken care of. That was my thought on it.
Okay.
If that
Mr. Chairman, if you need help, just give me a call.
I actually made a note. I said if I need, I
That's your
actually
call.
thought that. I said I'm going to ask Michael if I need a hand, because I know that
They can be heavy.
yeah, well, yeah, and just I just want to make sure it gets taken care of, and I think they're cool. There's a lot of interesting information to them, and I want them to be publicly available. I don't want to, we're not spending taxpayer money to, keep them stored in some leaky room. We want them available, and they've been restored, and let's keep them that way. So Naomi, did you have a comment?
I just wanted to say I could help move too, if
Oh,
you need it.
okay.
I'm strong.
Perhaps that'll be a good reason to check out the office also. So
So
I'll
you
coordinate.
just let me know.
Perhaps we all can. I'll reach out to Michael and Naomi, and we can make a plan about it, and I'll bring the coffee.
You're
Sounds
on, you're hired.
sounds great. So I appreciate it. I just want to keep everybody updated. Sometimes things seem kind of smaller, but I just want, as a committee, just out of respect, just to let everybody know basically everything that we're working on, so there's no surprises or as few as possible. So, um, our next agenda item is just a discussion about Jones Point. It's a complex project, it's a big project, and I think as we've gotten some quotes in and as we continue to kind of get closer to moving, we're realizing that it's going to be there's going to be a funding shortage there. What what the costs are as the scope of work is laid out currently are going to exceed, I think, what we have available. So it's pretty complex. There's a lot of moving parts. I've asked Sarah, our new member, to delve into that, which she has. She and I had a long discussion about it today. I've spoken with Tom Reynolds at length about it. Meg and I have been in contact about it. And really, we're just trying to gather information. We're trying to get hard quotes. We're trying to get as much specific information as possible so we know exactly what we're going to need um, to ask for if we decide to do so. Michael.
Mr. Chairman, and Sarah and Meg, you guys, and Tom Reynolds, actually, the community development block grant funds are available now for applications. And I don't know what the difference is between what we've allotted and what the actual cost will be, but if it's rather significant, by way of Tom Reynolds, or who's ever in charge of the project, ask him to put an application in right now to Alicia Zoller for community development block grant funds. It's up to the mayor. He's ultimately the guy making the decision, but it can't
Isn't
hurt.
it the location that's an issue?
Yeah, I don't think Ward 7 qualifies for seed community development block grants.
You're right. No, Mary, you're absolutely right. Thank you.
That's why so many of the parks that we've done have been in wards that are not CDGB connected. So Ward 7, Ward 3, right? And in fact, I think the Parks and Rec application that's in front of us now is Tech, which is 5, right? So those are the 3 wards where you can't use CPGB. So that's generally why they're coming to CPA. I know because I got some questions early on like, well, why is CPA only funding, these in these areas? And it's like, well, because other ones have another funding source and these don't. So part of it, I think, is helping people understand that. But yeah, I think unfortunately, like you all saw that initially in the eligibility round, Tom had put in for a second application just for the pathway for $150,000. And effectively, that application had to be withdrawn because when we talked to him, the issue was that you can't apply for like it's a new grant that was already in the first contract, right? That we still have open with them from the first phase of this project. So really, it comes down to instead needing to ask us to provide the funding necessary to complete that first project, which, just to remind the committee, means that they come to us, they ask for the extension of funding, or we can generate it ourselves. Once we're making that request to council, we move it as an order to council, and council has to agree that we can extend additional funding to that applicant. And that's a process that we've done a number of times at this point for different applicants. We've seen this before. Somebody starts a project, and then when they get in it, it's clear that things are going to cost more than they thought they would. And this was the case here.
Yep, it is. So it's
Is it,
it's more of
Mr.
a,
Chairman, excuse me interrupting. Is
nope.
it significant? I mean, I don't know what the dollar amount, does
Yeah,
anybody
it's
know?
significant. Like I said, it's a moving target. It's in the range of $150,000. It may I've been using the word beat up that number. We're trying to find ways we can get that down. But
Okay.
and the other thing is we don't have all the quotes yet, so it's difficult to say definitively without we have an estimate of quotes. We have some quotes for actual work, but some that's just an estimate. So, it's all, there's a lot of technical parts to it, especially with the contract with Ty and Bond. So, I appreciate Sarah's really delved into the details of that. It's sort of her area of expertise, and I knew that. That's why I asked her to do it. So, we're gonna really do our due diligence. The 2 promises I'm gonna make tonight is we're gonna do our due diligence and we're gonna tell you all about it and we'll decide how we want to do it together. That's really we have maybe 80% of the information we need, and we're working on the rest. Tom is really doing everything he can to get us info, but it's just, the mechanisms of the process are what they are, and sometimes it just takes time. So we're working on it, and we wanted to bring you an update on that because it is a significant project, and it looks like there's going to be a significant discussion about funding for that. So just sort of, so it's not a big surprise, and it's just it's something that we've been really digging into. And I just appreciate everybody. I just want to say too, like Meg and Sarah and just everybody, Tom, everybody's really been putting in a lot on that one just to make sure this comes out good. And we will make sure this project comes out nice for the city. So, but it's kind of some moving parts, you might say. Anybody have any further thoughts on that one?
Is that why? So we in January, our regular meeting is the 8th,
Would be the 8th. Yep.
but that would just be a likely a shorter meeting
Very
because then
short.
the public presentations are the 15th and the 22nd. So like the 8th, we would probably tackle like the minutes and just the Jones Point Park project.
We could. So I hope, right. And I really don't want to, I just to, for expectations purposes, January is going to be a busy month for us. I do understand everybody, most of our committee is also on another committee or a city councilor. We all have lives. We're all very busy. January will probably be a busy month for us. So we'll do our best, with that, but there's just business to be handled. So we're going to be meeting 3 times, I think, in January. So I think the 8th. Today is December 11th. We're hopeful within that time we'll be able to have a lot more information to present to the committee so we can potentially move forward. But it's hard to say though without the solid information. That's really the best I can offer. But yeah, so that is the thought that we could meet very briefly January 8th to discuss the topic further, and then just a reminder, the 15th and the 22nd. Would be the public presentations. Any questions or comments?
In the past, haven't we had our meeting attached to one of the public meeting? I mean, that's,
We could. I think the reason I broke it is just simply because those public presentations are just long nights and long meetings, and I
yeah.
didn't
I mean, I
know.
guess I don't know quite how many have made it through.
Yeah,
Like, uh, it, maybe that number is, or that's information, because I feel like the last time we met, there was still stuff up in the air. But how many applications are we expecting?
I believe there are, just off the top, eight, or there's either 8 or 9.
So
Assuming
we
the
have
housing all go through, and that's a further discussion. But enough that the thing also is that the Jones Point discussion, I don't know how long that will take, and I don't want to eat into those public presentation time slots because we're asking applicants to come for those 2 meetings. So I'd like to allocate a meeting and I hope it would be a quick one, but just to address that issue because like I said, I don't know that I think we'd have the time to fit it in before a public presentation, but I couldn't promise that. And I'd hate to kind of infringe upon those presentations because that's a core part of what we're doing. So, um,
we'll have
any other,
about 3 to 4 presentations per night, but applications are not technically due till the 20th. So just because someone was given eligibility doesn't mean they then decided to then complete a full application. Somebody may withdraw one or decide that they're not in a place to complete a full application at this time. So we won't know until the 20th. But the numbers that we're expecting are 3 to 4 per night.
yep. And we'll get
And
those out as soon as I get them. I'll forward them over to everybody for your review because I want everyone to have as much time as possible to look at those applications, but they aren't due till.
that's lower than past years.
Yes.
Yeah.
One time we put it all in one night and it was
I
4
remember.
hours.
It was awful.
Yeah, I
But
don't
we
do good after 2 hours. After 2 hours, my brain
And
stops.
some people got cranky at the end.
I was
Like applicants, there was one person who's not happy to be there. So I'm happy to do it over 2 nights. I'm just like thinking, I guess, yeah. I mean,
Well, we're always cheerful, so it doesn't matter.
It's true. It's true. But yes, that's the Jones Point situation. So and I think like I said, we're gonna do what we got to do to make sure it comes out good, and that whatever that is, we'll figure it out. Old business. Did anybody have any old business that they wanted to discuss?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the dates again in January?
Yep, it's January 15th and January 22nd, Maribel, both Wednesdays, at least they should be.
And
Um,
also the 8th, no?
and then also the 8th. Yeah, so the 8th I hope will be a quick one, and then the other two dates will be public presentations. Yes.
And do those
Um,
happen all on Zoom or is that in person?
that's a good question. So we had discussed potentially doing a hybrid meeting for that. I would like to do that. I reached out to Jennifer from Aaron Vega's office, which is called, I'm not sure, Meg would probably know.
OPED.
Um, yes, OPED. And they have a room in the City Hall Annex that's set up for a hybrid meeting. It's where the Holyoke Historic Commission meets, the Redevelopment Authority meets. But the issue was there were some conflicts with other meetings, specifically on January 15th. So we would have had to change our meeting, and I didn't want to do that. So I think my thought on that was that we would do it via Zoom this year, and then potentially plan to do it as a hybrid in future years. Because, like I said, I do want to be able to provide extra accessibility to folks. Still always keep the Zoom option for everyone, but allow that. I apologize, Lauren.
Two things. Can once you guys have the number of applications, can you decide if we need a meeting on the 8th? Because 3 nights in a month is like more than I can do given the two other boards that I'm on. And then if it has to be, I'll figure it out. But then in terms of the hybrid meetings, we've done those several times for planning board, and they're really hard when somebody's presenting a plan because you have people in the room who are talking. And then if the presenter's in the room, you're not getting it in Zoom in the same way that you can look at your screen. It gets really challenging when you're doing a presentation. And that's just experience that I've had. I'm sure other people would say differently, but that's been my experience.
Can
Yeah.
I ask, is it possible, because the public doesn't really weigh in, if I remember, the public weighs in with the survey, but at the meeting, there's not a public chit chat, right? Just my memory.
I don't think there typically is. I think we could
But we
probably.
do the survey after that people can weigh in. But so I guess one question is if this is not something where the public's really going to be like they have the right to know and we want them to have it accessible, but whether and that Zoom is not fully accessible to everyone. I am recognizing that. But would it be possible to like have the Zoom just stream like at the library's community room or something and announce that that would be a place people could go if they don't have, other ways to see it. Just as an idea, because I don't remember that we've had like questions from the community as a part of the meetings. And so, it would just be a way for people to come see what's going on, but not have to log into Zoom on their own. So
Yeah, definitely. And I think part of it too is just in terms of engagement. I think it's just interesting for the public, not necessarily that they would have to engage, but that they could witness and kind of absorb the projects as well, I think was part of it. But that, just the note, I think to note that the room wasn't available that I think would have worked. So I think Zoom will be the plan for this fiscal year. And I think we can have a discussion about how we want to do it in the future. But I do, I'm certainly open to anything. I think just my philosophy is I just wanted it to be as accessible as possible, and I think that's open to interpretation on how we do that. So, was there any other old business? Any other old business that anybody wanted to discuss, or are we going to call this a nice early meeting?
Woo.
Perfect, perfect. I appreciate everybody. Good effective, productive meeting today. Naomi, welcome to our committee.
Thank
We're
you.
thrilled to have
Very
you and
interesting.
thank you. I think we've
Thank you.
started off great and I look forward to continuing to work together. So with that, I might entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Helene?
Yes. Do we have to vote on adjourning the meeting?
Do we? Do we not?
Do really? No.
No, I thought we had to vote on everything. I think that that's like
Yeah.
my general rule. I'm like, all right, if
All
I'm
right.
not
Well,
sure,
we're
we have
just,
to vote on
it's over. We're gonna go. So
I like it. I like it.
Bye,
bye.
everybody.
Enjoy your evening. The
Good
meeting's over.
night.
Thank you so
Happy
much.
holidays.